as a community, we look at the word trauma as one of those uh, hush hush words.
Fall 2023.
It's a stigma around that word. Like nobody wants to be labeled or be classified under that.
Angela Marie Publishing proudly presents.
If you look at it, trauma is merely just being exposed or voluntarily or involuntarily to a situation that changes your outlook.
Sit in Your Shit, a 30-day guided journal for processing a crisis.
You have become accustomed and immune to your own shit.
Written by Miss Devin Elise, certified life coach and founder of Lifted KC.
Because mental health doesn't care where you are, what you're doing, who you are. It's going to kick in when it want to kick in.
Fall 2023. Sit in Your Shit.
When it finds its place to trigger you, boom, you're triggered. If you don't deal with the trauma, you're going to constantly be triggered.
The highly anticipated guided journal from Kansas City's own Devin Elise.
And one of the things that I'm learning in my associates with this healing is to be aware and to sit in my shit.
For more information, visit AngelaMariePublishing.com.
When I feel something, I sit there and figure it out. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling? Because when I can identify it, the next go round, I can prevent it before it comes.
Sit in Your Shit. Available now.
Let me show you what I can
The blacked out couch.
Man, hey y'all, man, I'm doing this chili mac. I ain't never cooked a chili mac.
Ooh,
I'm
ooh.
hoping for a fireball.
I hope it's fire for you too.
Real.
I don't know nothing about chili mac. My husband, that's the one thing well, it's plenty of things he changed about me, but knowing how to make some chili mac, I know is at the top of the list.
Oh yeah, chili mac. I learned that from the military. That was my favorite MRE.
Oh, okay. I don't know nothing about it, but I hope it turns out well. I really do.
It's
I
about,
really do.
I can smell it already.
Well, y'all, let's kick things off on tonight's topic because this episode, Token Trophy or Virtuous Woman, was one of my favorite ones. Usually, as the moderator, I sit back and I ask questions and I elevate the sisters. But I had a lot to say on this topic. And so I just want to go ahead and start off the conversation with something that is just going to engage both genders. Kind of a hot topic. Not a hot topic, but a static topic. Because we don't have much time. Chief's playing tonight. During the podcast, we were talking about stigmas and values and, what women choose to focus on in terms of how she values herself and what she thinks makes her worthy of other people and other people worthy of her. And Sister Devin had made a post very close to the podcast time, and it said, date a man for the fruits he produced, not his potential. And there was another man who got on the post and said, but if a man posted this, dot, 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 as if there would be all sorts of slamming and feedback. So we ended up talking about how really what we be seeing a lot of men post about when it comes to what women should be valuing or what they should be doing is more like lashes and hair and how we should be looking, what we shouldn't be wearing, but not necessarily anything having to do with our fruits or our virtues. So I want to start out by asking the ladies in the room, the sisters in the room, what values do you feel like you have that are significant that the brothers either don't appreciate because they knock you or don't appreciate because they step out?
Oh wow, okay, you got it.
We going there tonight.
Can you repeat that?
Yes. Values that sisters have, that women have, that they feel like are not respected by men.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off here. So it's kind of hard for me to answer that question, only because I've been with the same man for 29 years. So I don't have a lot of dating back and forth experience because I've been with one person for 29 years and he ain't trying to go nowhere. So, um, but when I speak to my female friends, because I'm in a space of people that are business owners, entrepreneurs that make a substantial income, a lot of times they have the issue of people not respecting what they do, how they grind, and what their focuses are. They want them to be the roundaway girl that they're not, because they actually do have values, morals, and standards. I again, I'm pretty lucky. Me and my husband got together pretty young, so we kind of grew with each other instead of away from each other, if that makes sense.
Yes, it absolutely makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. And I don't get it all the way because I haven't been with my husband for 20 years, but I've been with him for, is it 11? 11 years. And so I get it from that context in terms of not necessarily being able to speak to values that you have that other men might not value. But I work in a very male dominant industry. I'm in investments by day outside of my entrepreneurship role. And it is interesting for me in terms of values that I feel like are respected when I'm in a professional setting by the men that I work with versus the values that I feel like are respected outside of a professional setting. So maybe I'll offer up and say for me, when I'm at work, the men that I work with, they tend to appreciate very opinionated stances, independent thoughts, independent, I guess, potential solutions to problems, and being outspoken. But when I'm not in a professional setting outside of that, I feel like those values really are not appreciated by men in general for a woman to have. I don't know if anybody else can relate to something like that.
Oh, it happens to me all the time. I figured it's because I have a soft voice. I mean, I get what you're saying because in a work setting, yes, men treat me completely different than they do on the outside, like in real life.
In real life. In real life. And I also find that interesting because a lot of the men that I work with have actually told their wives not to work. They force their wives to get out of a career position. And so when we're thinking about our values and our virtues, does it mean that we should have different values based on the relationship that we are in with someone? Does that matter? Or should our values kind of just be present?
I just want to make sure you still just asking sisters, right? You haven't given the brothers any microphone access.
Brothers are already on stage, so brothers can go ahead and hop in. But I
Okay, I
just
just
needed the
want
first person to answer
Before
that
you,
question was to be a sister.
okay.
Did you have a response, Brother Rodney?
No, I was just I'm actually still over here working on some equipment stuff, so I just was trying to make sure I followed correctly, and I didn't know if anybody else had that same question. If you were giving the brothers a chance to speak yet.
So, to the other half of the question that you asked, such as should they be valued the same? Should virtues, or when you say virtues, it translates in my mind to character traits. I'm not changing your words. I'm just saying that's how I interpret it. No, they shouldn't. Um, we all different to somebody else. Now, who you are to your spouse, you are the most to them, but we all different to somebody else. You know, um, just because I feel like my mom is a good mom, don't mean she was a good wife. Um, I'm not giving a real life example. I'm just giving a conversation sake example. Just because somebody is a good friend, they might not be a good brother. You know, so on and so forth. Somebody might be a good person who you meet as an adult, and they was a terrible child. You know, we all different people to different people. So no, it shouldn't hold the same weight. Like whatever traits you use in whatever avenue or arena you might find yourself in, it's not gonna hold the same weight once you walk in this house and it's me and you living in this house. Now I can respect you for it, but just one of the traits you threw out, being outspoken, speaking your mind and stuff like that, that's cool. And I respect you for that while you outside the house. But when you come in the house, you know that for me and my biases and the way that I grew up, because because you're my woman, you're supposed to know that you're supposed to say things a certain way in order for it to hit my ear right. You know, you might need to change your method up a little bit. So you being loud and boisterous and whatever outside the house, that's great. I can respect it, but inside the house, that don't really move a lot here, because when you turn that on to me, I just shut down. Just again, giving examples. So no, they all should not hold the same weight.
may I answer
Please.
just to kind of piggyback?
Please do.
The original question was, should your virtues change, correct?
Actually, the original question was should your values we have I haven't even touched on virtues yet because I think that
Okay.
values can be virtues or something else, but should your values be different based on either the setting, the context, or the type of relationship that you have with someone?
Wouldn't that defeat the purpose of it being of value, though, if you change it? Is a value not like a core part of you, your belief system, who you are?
Yeah, but is this question? It seems like that this question is more about personality based more than values, though.
Well, and that's what I was getting
So
to.
let me. So I think I do have a comment and a response, but I do want to circle back to the question. I think the question was originally about the question. Or the first question was for the sisters. I think that what values that you feel that you have, within yourself that man may not appreciate one way or the other. And I think the second question was should your value to the next person remain the same? So now I think we're talking about to the next person, right? And for me, I think I want to just piggyback. Monica, I didn't want to cut you off, but I had a thought, and I just, I did get kind of dominant here, so I do apologize. But G Don, I want to piggyback off what G Don said because I agree with him about 90%. I think that there are certain values that my woman, my wife, can have as a person that is of very great value to me. But I think it's also a time and a place. I think that's what he was getting at. So, in that's sort of an example, right? I don't want to have a wife that is not able to be outspoken and not able to do some of those things that you described because she's a reflection of me. What I do want in a wife because I want her to know when it's time to do that. Know when it's time to go. Know when it's time to speak up for both of us, right? Or in an interaction between us, right? But I think that goes both ways, right? I think that there are some values like with man, for instance, a woman she doesn't want a soft man, but she knows that she also wants that man to understand that there's a time and a place to be a certain way, even though that's not necessarily that I value it less. It's just that I want you to understand that there's a time and place for certain things that I see a value in you for those certain things to come out. So that's my two piece on it. If we wasn't getting specific, it sounded like we were just kind of generalizing.
Yeah, so if I could probably add some more guidance, I think I liked where Sister Monica was going, and values are kind of integral in your personality. So actually, Brother Donald, I might try to pass you back the mic and ask you kind of what's the difference between personality and values. I guess I don't understand how someone's personality can exist without their values.
Well, I wasn't basing it like adding it or in addition. More so, just trying to understand. Are we talking about values as in uh, like I'll give you a perfect example. Some people will say that it's okay to steal to feed your baby. Then you got other people who says you shouldn't steal at all. So would I look at my significant other as someone who doesn't have great values because they do steal to feed for their baby, or because think about it, their personality may not be that they are a thief. That's not a habitual thing. But when people are backed against the wall, values can be diminished. So, I guess that's where I'm getting at. It's more so, do I look at my wife as a bad person if she has to steal because she has to feed her baby? Am I looking at her that don't as a woman that doesn't have value? And I don't think that I would look at her as not a woman that has value.
Okay,
I'm,
so
I'm I'm back confused again now. So like, are we talking about values from a moral standpoint, or are we talking about how I value a certain trait that you have? How I value it.
Great question. That's what I'm trying to figure out because the values can go on both sides. So is it based off of how we look at them, or as how the person is?
I think it's important to kind of go back to what Monica was saying, like, your values are who you are, right? But I think that it is still twofold because, there may be certain traits that I have that are of value to one person, but not of value to the next. Like they don't value that. That's not what they come to me for, or look to me for, right? And so I think that's what G Don was saying. I think it's kind of a mixture. I'm going back to kind of a mixture of what G Don was saying and what Monica was saying, just to make sure we all on the same page. But stop me at any time if I'm
If
off.
I'm correct in what I'm saying, right? If I remember this, I remember a conversation I had with you, where you said, and I could be, mistaken, but I do believe where you said, this was a conversation years ago, where you said you don't have time to cook. I'm the man. I don't have to do no cooking. So, do you cook or do your wife cook? Do you value that your wife can cook so you don't have to because you think because you're the man that have to go do man things? You remember that conversation?
I do remember that conversation. I hate that you bring that conversation up. When I'm so far from it in a place from a place of healing,
Right.
right? So I do want to address it though, because it's a great example, and I hate that you remember that conversation. I don't remember saying that, but it do sound like something that I would have said back then. So it's a great question because um, I continued at whatever point in time we had that conversation. No, I never got to the point where I started cooking. Every once in a while, I might do it, but it wasn't something that I considered a duty. Now, I don't know where my head was at that time that we had that conversation, but over time, it became one of those things where I just was so busy that I would forget to eat, that I didn't even want to think about food. It would stress me out to even think about, oh, fuck, I got to get something to eat. Like that would stress me out. And so for me personally, Rodney Lee personally, if I was going to be entertaining the idea of a woman or a lady being in my life, she would have had to have been the person that wanted to be in the kitchen. And I understand it's not that it's a man's thing or a woman's thing, because I don't believe that now, and I can't believe I believed that at one point in time, but it's believable. I believe that I probably did believe that at one point in time that it was gender based. I don't think it's gender based. I think relationships now, I'm on the other side, bro. I'm married. I'm in my 40s. For me, relationships now are about values and who's the best person for the job, right? And so for me, bro, like when I did meet my eventual wife, one of the first things that I told her was I don't want to think about the kitchen, because if I do, not on no misogynistic shit, it was basically me being upfront. If I get to the point where I got to think about food every single time it's time for me to eat, where I was at that time was stressing and grieving, I'll end up forgetting to eat. And it ain't no big deal to me to just forget to eat. I can just keep moving on from day to day. So it was really me communicating that to her that I haven't been in the kitchen. I wasn't used to being in the kitchen throughout my entire life. So yes, to answer your question, man, bro, even before I met my wife, bro, I never would entertain a female that wasn't willing to get her ass in the fucking kitchen for me. Yes. So yes, that was something that was of value for me in a woman throughout my whole life. Although the reasons behind that kind of changed throughout time. But great
So,
question and example.
so it
Yes,
sounds
sir.
like that, it's more so of a maturity base probably than of how we look at values. If at a younger
Well,
age, I'm like,
again, OG, let
Now,
me
now
cut you
look,
off.
now look, now.
Wait,
I'm gonna let the brothers have their time, but this is the sisters unpacking.
go ahead then,
sisters,
sister.
y'all take over at any time. But if we here on the floor, we on the floor. D, I want to say this.
All right, well, I
We
can go ahead
should,
and get that corrected real quick, real quick. Appreciate
okay,
y'all. I think really what
okay.
we, what where y'all are getting at though is there's a difference in the values that someone possesses for themselves and who they want to be and the person that they are, and the values that they have when it comes to what they expect of a partner or of a relationship if they're going to be in a relationship. And so, getting back to the first two questions that were posed, the first one was specifically to sisters. What values do you have? Do you feel like men don't value? That kind of was what I just said, the dynamic. That was the basis for that question. What happens when your values are at odds with someone who's on the other side or someone who you want to have a relationship with? What do you do? Sisters. Shonda, I see that you joined. Sister Shonda.
What's
Hey.
up? What's up?
I also see
I'm
Sister
here.
K. Yeah, we happy to have you. The brothers was trying to run off with the episode. I appreciate them, no. I appreciate them, no. But I was told to keep it short tonight because it's a Chiefs game. So I got a referee. But yeah, it's good to have you. Do you have anything? What do you think about where we went? We kind of started out by asking what values do sisters have that men don't appreciate? Um, we had a response where basically being a go-getter, I believe it was Sister Zena who had said, when women are go-getters, when women are actually out here, grinding, a lot of men tend to have issues with that. I mentioned being at work, being outspoken, that's appreciated in a professional setting, but then when I come home, it's not appreciated. So then you come into this complex where, depending on where I'm at, some of my values may be welcome, other of my values might not be. So what do I do when the values that I have for myself are at odds against someone who I want to be in a relationship with, when they don't value my values?
Mm. Yeah, so I agree with both of y'all on those aspects or those values that I have myself that I found that were, unappreciated or in fact in some cases intimidating to men, unfortunately. I kind of grew up, with the mindset that, and I know we've had this discussion before, but my parents taught me to be independent, you know what I'm saying? And that strong mindedness, strong headedness can definitely be a problem, even though it's valuable. I mean, it can be a problem in relationships, even though it's valuable to me in my life, because I know that I don't have to depend on somebody else for my well-being. But in some cases, that's a value that men want women to have, is to be dependent on them. And so I definitely have into problems with that. I think another one that I tend to kind of run into problems with is the fact that I'm an intellectual. um and I'm not a superficial person, so there's some values that men tend to have because they're more materially more physically based in the world in a lot of ways, that the extra intellectual stuff from a woman, um in my case, has been a problem as well. So it's hard to find a balance in where do I share the knowledge that I have being without them feeling like I'm trying to direct them in some kind of way. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. And can I just piggyback real quick on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. So I'm going to go back to my stance of values, core values don't change. So maybe that's just me. Maybe it's the way that the word is used that I can't get past. But my question to the ladies, especially the intellectuals, why would you want to be with somebody who doesn't like your values? Why would you change yourself based on that? That's why I'm stuck on the definition of value that we're going with here. Because why would you want to be with somebody who can't appreciate your go getter style or your outspokenness or your opinionated self or your intellectual self? Why are we doing that?
I definitely wouldn't. That's why I'm still single.
I think the problem is the way that we're using the word values. Um, I'm
Hello.
combative as a person. Okay. Anybody know me? I'm gonna argue with you in a hot second. I don't care. People I work with know that. My boss know that. My husband know that. My kids know that. My grandkids even know that now. Uh, but it's a difference in how I do that when it comes up to the relationships with, say, my husband. Like we could have a whole argument in a room and not say one word, and people don't have a clue that we going off on each other. We just shoot each other these little looks and stuff. But we are not disrespectful of one another. Where if it's somebody else, you might be called a motherfucker. I'm gonna be honest. It may come out, but when it comes to my husband, I'm not that kind to where I'm not gonna go at him the same way I would anybody else. So I think that's where that disconnect comes, is that we're using the word values to say how we are as a person. How I am as a person is who I am all the time, every day. Have I tamped down a whole lot? Yeah, my husband calmed me down a whole lot, you know. But at the same time, once you push that right button, it's on. The only person that can calm me down is my husband. And then my grandkids. My grandkids just, they grandkids. They just look at you and you in love. So that's a totally different thing. So I think that's where that disconnect is. I would never tell any woman, if a man can't be with you for who you are and how you are, I'm sorry, that ain't the man for you. I'm sorry. He need to go. Period.
Okay, so if I were to translate or maybe paraphrase what you're saying, there's a difference between values and behaviors.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. I wonder if that's what Brother Donald was saying when he said that, or when he asked if we're talking about values or if we're talking about personality.
I think he was like, I think, and I was kind of piggyback off what he's saying. Like, there's two different ways that we're using the word values here, right? But I think that the only point that I really want to continue to make is that what's of value to me may not be of value to the next person, right? It may not be important. Certainly, we all have certain qualities and characteristics that make up our personality. That one person may love more than the other. It doesn't. It's not going to be valued by them the exact same way every single time. So what happens is when you have certain relationships with people, you have to understand just how much that person you interacting with values a certain piece of you or a certain part of you. It's not saying that you compromise who you are, but there are certain values that are tied to behaviors. To piggyback off what Princess said, there are certain ways that you can carry out those values that you may do differently from person to person, depending on who it is in your circle that you're interacting with. Because we all are not going to be, there may be certain qualities like the go getter. I use the go getter with the sisters. Some man being intimidated or not necessarily appreciating that quality. I think that you find a balance, right? Like even though it is a strong part of the core makeup of who you are, you find a balance in how you express that and how you kind of carry out those behaviors with person to person.
Yeah, if I could jump in just a quick second, because the word that I use is filters, right? So I say this to people in my life, like, let me give me a second, let me take a couple filters off, and let me filter this the right way. Like, let me get my words together, etc. Because I'm still gonna say what I need to say as far as the message is concerned, but the method, I will always make sure that the method of my message is tailored to who it needs to reach. Prime example, you know, my parent. I'm the mediator of my family. I'm the youngest boy. I got to grow with everybody, watch everybody mistakes, and all of that. And so like that's just kind of my place in the family. I'm the mediator. So when I'm talking to my mom about something, I'm gonna have some filters on, i.e., I'm not gonna use cuss words. I'm gonna be a little bit more gentler um, in my tone, but I might be a little bit harsher in my words, as in, nah, you messed up. So no cuss words, no disrespecting that, but it's direct and saying you messed up. I might say that to my mom. And then to my dad, me and my dad is a bit more casual. I might say, hey man, it sound like you was fucking up, man. And I might make a joke out of it. So the same message, the message is the same, but through my filters, I've adjusted the method of my message. So applying that to like your values shouldn't change, but you should always put like some filters or adjust it so that it could be so it can serve its true purpose. If your value, like Sister Shonda said, being an intellectual, she wants to share her knowledge. Now, granted, of course, it's gonna always be some niggas who just want a dumb female. Them niggas is weird. We ain't talking about them. But if we talking about like just an average good guy who wanted to have an intellectual conversation with somebody, if you, and I'm not saying you do this because I don't know you, I'm just giving an example. If you say, "Oh, you should eat this because it's good for you and you'll live longer," versus, "Hey, I read such and such a study and it talked about the qualities of this food or whatever. I just thought that was interesting and I wanted to share that with you." That's those the, you still sharing your intellectual nature, but it's less likely to come off as you telling him how to do something. Again, I'm just giving an example.
It's funny that you chose food because that's actually one of the areas I'm pretty well versed in.
You know, I feel that. Okay. So just because we have a certain value doesn't mean that it excuses behaviors that can trigger our partner. Is that fair to say, Brother G Don?
Yeah, I'd agree with that summarization.
Okay.
I agree with that too, even, coming from our side, because I mean, when you're dealing with people in general, some level of diplomacy is required when you're dealing with different personalities from yours in general. So that would automatically be the case in a relationship.
Okay. I feel that. So, maybe going back to the earlier example that I used when I was talking about being at work and, kind of being a go getter, being aggressive, presenting alternative sides. I appreciate that in my role because one of my values that I've come to learn is autonomy. Autonomy, intellect, and spirituality. Those are kind of my three big ones. And so I've come to learn also with being married that just because I appreciate autonomy doesn't mean that I have to be autonomous in every single area of my life, especially having a husband. But what happens if me being an intellectual person is just absolutely disdained by my husband? It's not, but what happens then, right? Do I just have behaviors where I never exhibit around him that I appreciate being an intellect and I go find someone else to display those behaviors with? What do I do?
Can I answer since I'm the husband?
Absolutely.
Um, so what I feel like it depends on how valuable your intellect is to you. If you consider it one of your core values, one of your strongest values, and then the person that you're with doesn't value it the same in the way that you appreciate that quality about yourself, then I think that, yeah, you're not supposed to be with that person who doesn't value something that you hold near and dear about yourself. There are certain qualities, certain values, certain things that we have within ourselves that are just not up for discussion, right? But then there are also certain values can be compromised, right? Like some values can be toned down a bit because you know what? I know that this is makes up a piece of who I am personality wise, but it's not something that I truly value about myself. So if this is something that this person may want me to compromise, I'm willing to compromise these values, these personalities, these qualities about myself. But then there are other qualities that you shouldn't be willing to compromise. I think that it all boils down to how that individual, you in this situation, if your intellect is something that you hold high of high value for yourself, if that's one of your things that you are not willing to compromise, then you don't be with that person who can't appreciate that in the same way.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't have no dumb woman. I value intellect.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my wife is the smartest person that I've ever met. And I'm not saying that because I'm trying to pull her because I already done that. I really do believe that she's the smartest person that I've ever met. And I have a list of people that I say, you know what, these people can go toe to toe with me because they smarter than the motherfucker. She on that list. So absolutely, and that was something that I prayed for. I prayed for a woman of intellect because both of my parents were college educated, and so that was something that I wasn't willing to compromise. I would not have even considered or entertained the thought of marrying you if you didn't have an education certification that was at least on my level. It had to at least be on my level. That was something that I wasn't gonna compromise. So absolutely, I value that very much so.
Yeah, I would say in the frame, because in the question that she posed, she used the term marriage. So um, I'm not married, but if you're talking like long term relationships, and I plan on being married, yada yada, I'm in a long term relationship. So people are gonna grow and change over time. So there may be a value that you have or something about yourself you discover about yourself, something that maybe grows over time. So in that scenario, I would say if you're already in it, you and this person, you're already a couple months, couple years in. I would say, one, address it. Like, hey, I like to talk about, like Lashonda was saying, like, hey, I like to talk about food, yo. Like, you don't like to talk about food with me? Like, no, I really don't care. Can you at least try to care or entertain me a little bit so we can have these conversations and I can connect with you? So more so, instead of you forcing, oh, you need to value what I value, again, put a filter on it and adjust the method, and go to the real core issue of, I want to be connected with you, and me talking to you about certain things or just having conversations in general is how I feel connected. For me, if somebody says it like that, like my girlfriend now, we've been together 2 years, we live together now, all of that. She's a baker. I don't eat sweets. Like, yes, I'm chubby, but I'm a meat and potatoes guy. I don't eat sweets like that. So when she get to talking about sweets and stuff, it's like, okay, she talking about her sweets. I really don't care about sweets, but that's not what she's doing. She's just trying to connect with me.
Trying to connect with you. No, this is hilarious, bro.
Yeah, bro. So when I put myself in that mind frame, it's easier for me to have that conversation. Like, oh, a Claire's use this method to bake. Oh, okay, that's interesting.
I completely understand that because though I'm not in a relationship, I this is something that I have with my daughter quite a bit. You know, my daughter is 20 years old. She got a lot of interests that I don't give two fucks about, excuse me. But I sit there and listen because she not one of those people that, is ripping and running the streets, got a bunch of friends that ain't her friends and all of that. So, again, it goes back to that wanting to have someone to connect to, and it took me a little while to realize that and accept it because I had a bad problem of just kind of letting her talk and sometimes tuning it out, and I'm trying to be better about that. But now I'm at the point where if she talking about some stuff I really don't care about, I'm just flat out honest about it. Like, I really don't care, and it's not to be mean, but it's just like I'm not gonna also sit here and act like I'm interested in what you're talking about. And I know at some level I'm tuning some of it out. So I feel like honesty is important when it comes to that as well. So I would tell her, like, yeah, I must explain. I don't care, but this is why I don't really care. And I know that you care and nothing is wrong with that, but I don't care. Like,
I'm gonna have to start practicing that, Sister Shonda. I'll let you know how that go in my home. Wink, wink. Okay, so so we done talked a little bit about competing values, and the topic of our episode was token trophy of virtuous woman. So y'all know what's next. I'm about to just pose the question to the brothers. I've heard a lot of you all say that you do value a woman who is an intellect. You don't want no dumb woman. And when we were in the comments, during the episode being live, right? Of course, we talked about the women who tend to be more chaste, that tend to be intellect, that tend to be reserved, versus the women who are more focused on their appearance and value that and think that, being able to be a little open from an intimate perspective, that that's the way to be valuable. And so it's common for women to have these competing values. Am I supposed to be more focused on looking good and being able to just turn a trick or two, for lack of a better term, i.e., being a token or trophy wife? I'll say trophy wife if you're not necessarily a rich man. Or should I be focusing on being more virtuous? So, like, brothers, kind of spill the tea. What we supposed to be
Well,
focusing on?
Amy,
I'm gonna tell you
just
like this. I'm gonna tell you like this. My wife is a 10 when she don't even feel like she don't even know where it feel that way. But every single time we leave the house, she wants to look good. Not just for me or the world, for herself. And I value that. When you have that type of love for yourself, no matter what nobody else, bothers, it doesn't bother you. To me, that's pretty valuable. It's when it comes to valuing your woman, what a virtuous woman is. I don't think any particular, I guess you could say, set of rules can dictate what you feel as value or virtuous to your woman. But me personally, I go by the biblical reference of it. Someone that is not whorish, that that takes care of your mind, your body, your spirit, all that. So when it comes to value with a woman, you gotta actually know what your values is to even be able to understand what a virtuous woman is, or they'll sit right on your lap and you won't even know it.
All right. I think what the sister was asking was because I was tuned in to the live episode, and I think I remember the segment where I think you guys were speaking about who gets married more, the promiscuous woman or the more reserved, virtuous woman, and so I think that that's really what we need to focus on. Like, is are you saying um, when you ask the question, should women be more focused on being reserved or busting it open and being sexy and promiscuous to the other gender? I think that that's where the question was supposed to go. Am I right or wrong?
I don't even know if I would necessarily say that. I think that's a
Okay.
part of it, but I do think that it's really about this idea, right? When we're talking about a virtuous woman, a token woman, or a token, a trophy woman or a token woman, we're talking about a set of values that tend to, I guess, drive an attraction to someone, right? If we're talking about it just from those three. And when we were on the podcast, we talked a lot about I can be this woman who had virtues. We went through and read the Bible verse. I can be this woman who had virtues. I believe that what sets women apart is that we're the gateways of life, right? Like we are the carriers of life. We are very spiritual beings, and that's why, in my opinion, we tend to look for more than just how a man can perform and how he looks. Whereas it doesn't seem as if that tends to be the primary focus for men. Even married men who say that they have this great wife, they still step out. And so if I'm a woman who values intimacy and monogamy and I can't get that with my husband or my partner, does that mean that there's something wrong with my values or his? So that's what
That's
we're
a
kind of
lack.
asking.
That's
Like,
a
what should
lack
we
of
focus
self
on?
worth on his part. That's a lack of self worth on his part.
And some
So it's
women consider stepping out to not even necessarily be just actually having sexual acts. It can be, oh, my husband is addicted to porn. That can bother some women. So that's more of an
Yeah.
appearance of what a woman
Yeah.
should look like and not necessarily
Yeah.
an act itself.
Yeah, I'm gonna answer it real briefly the way that I did that the night of the show. Token trophy of virtuous. Which one matters more. I want my woman to be all three. Depends on the time and the place that we at, right? There are times where I need you to be as virtuous and as pure as you can be. And then there's times where I need you to be the complete opposite of that. I think that, token, trophy, right? Like when we step out, like what Dee mentioned, when we step out, it's a big deal, right? I'm a playboy. I'm a pretty boy, right? I like to go out, step out, and look good. My woman should compliment me. I want to be able to take my woman around and say that's a trophy. You understand? Like, hey, we going out here. Like I told you when we were going to some outing recently, I said you're gonna be my trophy tonight, right? I need you to be all three facets. I think that the difference between men and women in terms of what they may value more is, women are more stimulated mentally and emotionally, and for men initially is physically, right? Initially is physically. Now the difference between a boy and a man is a boy never gets to the point where he can see some of the mental, the intellect, the emotional things that make up a woman that are even more valuable than the physical. But you're gonna still be a male whether you're a boy or a man. A man is always going to appreciate something physical. Not saying that that's the only thing that he appreciates. I think that he should be allowed as a man. I'm not talking about boys, but as a man should be allowed to see you in all three of those ways. Is my personal opinion.
So the way I interpreted the question and the way I rephrased it in my mind for it to make sense to me, and please correct me. It sounds like you were more so talking about attraction, right? Like how do you? Why does it seem like the promiscuous looking girls tend to attract men more, even though men say they don't want a whore? The whores are attracting all the men. Is that kind of? Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, that can be one interpretation. Yep.
That's why I said initially.
Yeah,
Like initially, bro. Like if that's what's gonna stimulate us initially, because we're more visually stimulated at our core.
yeah. Now I'd agree with that. I think it's like just, and this is just what I say like to my cousins, and if one of my female friends asks me, I always go to the fact that nothing is promised, tomorrow ain't even promised, yada yada. So what can you do to increase the likelihood of you achieving your overall goal? If you want a college degree, the likelihood of you getting it if you don't enroll in college is very low. But if you want to attract a certain type of man, if you just want to attract a man, then they're dressed like a whore, all the men will look. And if you are dressed classy, then, you know, men who are looking for a classy woman will look. That don't mean you can be classy and unattractive, you know. Hold on, that didn't make sense. But
No, that makes sense. You could be a classy, ugly ass nigga. Yes, you can.
yeah, 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 yeah. You could be like, oh, okay, well, I'm dressed. A woman can be, dressed like, oh, okay, I'm dressed in like, dressing like a nun, quote unquote,
Right, right,
and then wonder why you ain't attracting no men. Well, you can still show a little bit of curve. You got some booty. Get you a long ankle length. Maybe the dress is a little tight. Show that booty a little bit. You ain't showing your ass cheeks, so you ain't looking like a whore. You know, but you still are giving out the allure. You still giving out the aura of attracting something, like you are. What's the word I'm looking for? But I think you guys get what I'm saying.
So, in my opinion, I agree with Holly. I want my woman to be all three. Now, initially, men were hunters, so visual cues. So, do you look good? And you can look good in something trashy or something classy. Are you attractive? Okay,
There
now
we
I'm
go.
looking. Now, like Holly said, now are you stimulating me further than the physical? That's the point in terms of men versus boys, and in terms fuck fuck boys, however you want to look at it. So yeah, I can give an example. Like I'm married 19 years. My wife is a class act. I couldn't have picked anyone better to raise my children. All right. However, I'm on Instagram right now liking pictures of this chick with a fat ass. I don't care about this chick with a fat ass. I just like the picture. I don't care what she sound like. I don't care about her dumb ass phrases that she's putting under this picture. Like I don't know what she sound like because I never even unmute her because I don't care about her. Now that and that's how far these trashy hoes go for me, even outside of my house. I don't care about you. You don't care about yourself and how you're presenting yourself. So for me at this point in my life, in terms of women that I actually pay attention to or even give a thought to, for me right now is class. Like, are you a classy person? Like even like with influencers, what type of what's the word? What do they do? What type of content you're putting out? Like, I'll follow somebody. Okay, she's cute, but she's an idiot and muter. But I got somebody. Okay, this content I actually care about. I'm gonna listen to what she says. So I think it's a dichotomy. It's hard for y'all. I'm sorry, but uh, in terms of values, be yourself. Somebody will. If somebody values you and appreciates you, they'll find you.
Okay, okay. So this actually came up. First of all, y'all is funny, but this did come up during the live comment exchange for the podcast. Is why do they have to be mutually exclusive? I am going to go ahead and throw out my opinion, and I believe this is Sister Devin's opinion too. For most men, I don't think it can be all three because definitionally a token wife belongs to a rich man. We're not gonna knock nobody though. But I do believe that a lot of men can have trophy and virtuous women wives. Yes, yes, I do agree with that. However, why is it sometimes that doesn't seem like it's enough? And that's what we were talking about on the podcast, is that it can seem like I'm a woman that has all of that and I'm feeling myself and I feel really good and I'm confident, and then I find out that my husband, my partner, whomever, then stepped out, and now I'm feeling less than. Now I'm feeling like, you know, what's going on with me? And that creates real emotional and mental issues with women.
One, some
So,
niggas ain't shit. That's just the bottom line. Ain't shit niggas exist. They always existed. They gonna always exist. It ain't that it's less real men. It's just less niggas that gotta pretend to be a real man to get a woman. Ain't shit niggas is gonna exist. You can have now. I will say you can have um, discernment and all of that. Sometimes a nigga will turn on his ain't switch shit and do some ain't shit and fuck y'all whole game up, your whole life up because he decided he wanted to do some ain't shit. Unfortunately, that's just that just come with it.
Yes, and Sister Monica, she I think she's prepping for the Chiefs game, so she in the comments spitting some stuff, but I'm gonna go ahead and put it on blast for the record. She said that, sisters who find yourself in that situation, that's not a you issue, right? It don't question your values, right? That's a him issue, but we're not gonna neglect the fact that a him issue can cause you to be in a grieving process and cause you to slip into depression and can cause you to enter into a war emotionally and mentally within yourself. It's a real thing. It's a real thing.
Can I come in and break the internet real quick? I'm gonna just try to be as respectful as I can while also being very raw and authentic. I think that men and women we value certain aspects even in relationships differently. Like we look at them differently. Like what JB was speaking about. He may see somebody with a fat ass or a cute face, and he likes looking at that. Um, I think there's a certain value that man place on certain things where, I think I can speak for most men and most husbands especially, where it's like, you have more of me than any other woman can get, right? And so, if I'm just looking, if I have a wandering eye, to me as a man, I think this is how men think. Like that's not a big deal because I know where home is, and I'm not trying to fuck up my marriage or my family for the sake of me just being a man and liking to see something that's visually stimulating. Um, for a woman can feel like, well, you know what, I should be enough. I think that's where that's the motivation behind what we doing, what I hope we heal, because there are certain things that men value, certain things that women value, and neither of us are willing to compromise on those things. So what do we do? What do we do? But I think that these are absolute truth. Niggas like to look at shit. Niggas like fat asses and titties and you're going to look. You're going to be visually stimulated, and for some men, they might be even more than they might be physically stimulated by the sight or the thought or the fantasy. Like you mentioned, porn. Those are things that we have imaginations in our mind. We might have in our mind banged every woman that we looked at on that day, but if we didn't physically do it, we see nothing wrong with it. Women think differently. And so I think that that's where these conversations come into play, is because we do have to get to a point where we can respect the way each other feels about it. And I think that throughout time, women have done more compromising in respecting that about us than we have about them. I think that that's really where we need to go with conversations like that or like this. Um, it has to be a compromise and an understanding of what's important to your partner. But who needs to compromise more? Who has compromised more throughout time? I think that that's what the motivation behind all of this shit is.
Yeah, and I'm gonna hop in and just say I'm gonna call sisters out a little bit. We do have double standards sometimes because we like to feel as if we are quote enough, as Brother Rodney said, but there's always some other I guess feature of attraction that humans have, right? Like I tend to like ripped, very in shape, wealthy, successful men. I think that's attractive seeing that on TV, but that's on TV. That's on TV, right? I don't like feeling controlled. I don't like feeling as if I'm going to be belittled because of whatever stature you feel like you've attained. So at the same time, I tend to balance out my attraction with what I have at home is perfect. I have a very attractive, I'm a joke and say metrosexual. Anybody who actually watched the podcast would understand. I have a very attractive husband who meets me. I love you, boo. Who meets me where I need to be met, not just physically, but intellectually and spiritually, right? And from a legacy perspective, our visions align from a legacy perspective. But sisters, let's not act like we don't be talking in our little group chats with the girls and looking and talking, but because we trust ourselves, quote unquote, more than we trust our partner, let's just be real, we
Man,
have
y'all,
an issue when he looks somewhere else because
y'all
we
be on,
think he can't control himself.
y'all be on them gray sweatpants. Yeah, listen, I understand that men have this visual thing, but women have the same visual thing just
Wait,
as.
wait, wait, wait. I don't think it's the same. What I would do in a situation like this is I would speak about something more mentally or emotionally stimulating. Like women can be mentally or emotionally stimulated by another man outside of their home. It ain't got nothing to do with physical interaction. But that to me is the same thing as a man being physically attracted to something outside of their home, because women place more value in mental and emotional stimulation. So if a woman can be mentally stimulated by any other man, we as man, we can look at that as the same way that they look at us being physically stimulated by another woman. I would rather say that than to say that women have the same physical attraction issues that we do as men.
That's fair. I don't know if I say same.
Hold up, swole
Oh,
up. Hold up, swole up. I'm agreeing. I am agreeing. But we in a time now where it's toxic masculinity, and now a woman has to be in her feminine space. And the only way for her to be in her feminine space is if the man is masculine enough. So I get what you're saying. I agree to an extent about the emotional part, stimulation, mental stimulation. But nowadays, these women are looking at gray sweatpants just as much as niggas is watching butts. I'm trying to tell you. I get what you're saying, but we're in a different time now.
I mean, the
You
fact
got
of
it.
the matter is, we live on the planet with 8 billion people. You're not just going to be attracted to one person. You're not going to find one single person attractive. You
that
find
part.
people attractive all the time. It's about what you do and how you act upon those feelings of attraction towards that person.
Okay, I do.
And
But
that's what I
check
think
this
is the
out.
difference with men and women. Hold on, D, just real quick. LaShonda, that's what I think is the difference between men and women because one of the things that's going on in today's times, because we're in a different time, right? Women are bothered if they man is liking or heart emoji in pictures of women with fat ass and titties, right?
I've always thought that was dumb. Always.
But it's
But
part
that's
of the
an
culture though. It's
insecurity,
part,
but it's an insecurity on their part. It's insecurity on their part. So they're the a man going out and acting outside of his relationship in an actual physical manner where he's having physical contact with another woman, that's a him issue. Her being mad about something that he found attractive outside of her, that's a her issue. That's an insecurity problem.
I hear that, but what about but then now we gotta start thinking about other people too. Like if you know that there's a certain behavior that you do that your wife doesn't like, then you know do you value your wife enough to stop that behavior, or is that, oh, that's just her insecurity?
well, right, and that's what I meant when I
I agree
said
with
some
that.
some some values and qualities are going to be they should be compromisable, right? And I just put myself out there.
Yo,
I lived my
can I just
entire
hop in
life.
real quick?
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Real quick, I just
Somebody
want to
trying to
ask,
hop in?
yeah, just real quick.
Yeah,
And then I'll mute myself and come
yes,
back
ma'am.
in after fact. But can I ask a couple of things here? First thing, why are the men describing how women think? Because I'm all in the comments like, no, that's not how I think. But as I'm gonna piggyback on Lashonda real quick, yeah, that's totally a him thing if he's not looking how he deals with it. But please stop saying that all women get mad about stuff like that. My husband looks, I look, we're human. You see what I'm saying? And to
I
say
wasn't
that
saying
women,
all women.
no,
I'm
no, no, no,
saying
no.
it's part of the culture.
But to go along further, I just want to back up to these gray sweatpants. If y'all for 1 second think that women are not looking at gray sweatpants and thinking whatever they're thinking, you're foolish. I don't understand why this turned into a conversation about how women are immediately attracted emotionally and mentally. We got to look at something before we can have a conversation most times.
Well, I was just speaking for me. I'll just respond. I was speaking to the grieving process, like feeling like a woman feeling like that they're not enough because their man is physically attracted to somebody else, and I think that it is part of the culture. I was never saying, please. I hope I didn't. If I did say that, I didn't mean to say that all women are like that. I'm saying that it's part of the culture. It's what we have in the social media culture. You don't want to see your man. There are certain women that don't want to see their man even interacting with somebody online. To them, they feel a certain way about that. LaShonda is saying that's a her thing, and I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I kind of more piggyback to where Donald was going with it, where even if it is a her thing, if you respect your woman enough and she truly has a problem with certain behaviors that you are just used to doing, that certain behavior should be compromisable for certain people in your life.
Certain things
Okay,
I would
so
should
may
be
like.
I ask a counter
compromisable, but
question?
oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm going to forget if I don't say it right now. Nope, go ahead. It'll come back to me.
Oh, you good. I got ADHD. I completely understand. Go ahead.
No, I already lost it. It'll come back.
Okay, my bad. So what I was about to say is those things you should be able to compromise for sure. Insecurities come from an unhealed place. So what are we doing to get to the bottom of these insecurities? What are we doing to help heal these insecurities?
Can I answer that question? Think about if you have an insecurity, right? Usually a insecurity situation most likely is not necessarily started from an internal thing. Most insecurities start from an external stimulation. Is it, and then it turns into an inside thing. So like if that's the case, then you gotta is it harder or easier, excuse me, to do it from internally to the outs and then move to outside, or do we help to get that insecurity together based off of how it started? You know what I mean? Do we go back to the drawing board where it started and then bring it back to that point, or do we really do we have to give them the, or do they have to have the power to beat that themselves?
I mean, if you're the person causing the insecurities, that's one thing. But typically, with something like that, especially when it comes to somebody just simply interacting with people online, there's something way deeper than that. There's something that probably had nothing to do with you to begin with, regardless of whether it came from the environment or not. It's still there. It needs to be worked out and healed. The root cause of things, that's the problem in our society altogether. We want to put a band-aid over shit and treat the symptoms of things and never get to the root cause of it, and it just continues in a vicious cycle. So will you ever be happy with not being able to um appreciate the beauty of other people or have conversations with other people that don't have nothing to do with sex or relationships or anything like that, just general conversations? Are you willing as a man to give up the rest of your life having interactions with other people because of your woman's insecurity? I mean, same thing vice versa with women, you know. I had problems with men in the past. I dress in regular, long maxi dress. Somebody telling me I'm showing too much. Like, that's an insecurity. If if those things are not addressed from the deeper level to whatever was causing it, it's just gonna be a vicious cycle.
I think, Lashonda, you make a great point. But I think that two things can be true at once, though. I think that we can, as a couple, try to address the root cause of it. But in the meantime, because healing is not an overnight process, I do think that some of those values should be able to be compromised for this because I care about this next person. I wanna be on this healing journey with you. So even though these may be some insecurities that I think don't make sense, that you have no reason to feel a certain type of way about them. If I know that you feel this certain type of way about them, and we start to get to the root cause of it, we can do both, in my opinion.
Absolutely, but doesn't that take for that other person to acknowledge that they have a problem to begin with? What if that
Yeah,
don't happen?
yes, they do. They have to identify and say that yes, I have that insecurity. Otherwise, then you can't have the conversation.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be a little kind of unpopular opinion on this. I think that even if you care about that person enough, you'll have the patience because they may not be at the point where they're ready to admit that it's an insecurity. And I think that people that you with should be considerate of certain things that may trigger you, and even if you haven't um, healed enough to the point of accountability and acknowledgement, I just think, man, like when you care about a person, when you consider somebody part of your circle, like you'll work through it not within reason, like in moderation, like my man G Don always say, find a balance in it, right? Never compromise yourself, put yourself through your own personal triggers or insecurities for the sake of helping somebody through theirs, especially when they haven't even acknowledged it, taking the accountability. But I do think that we should still be patient with one another, especially those of us that have started healing journeys and taking accountability, because we all have to remember where we once were. So I think for me, that's just the way that I move in life. Like I try my best to be as patient with folks, even when I know like that they got a long way to go.
I do
Yeah.
agree with that. I do agree with that as well. Each and every one of us is on a different journey, so nobody's going to be at the same place in their journey. But I'm also of the mindset that there's only so much patience, because once your cup starts being empty, you have nothing to give. You can try, but it's just physically draining, emotionally draining, mentally draining. And at what point in that process do you say, hey, this is not going to work anymore? I've tried, I've been patient, I've waited. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a problem. Like a lot of people end up staying in situations a lot longer due to that idea, that because a lot of us are healers, especially those of us who are on our own healing journey. We exude healing energy, and we attract wounded people who don't want to heal. So at what point do you decide that, especially for a single person who may not be in a relationship yet,
Can,
did you decide the patient should run out?
can I chime in? I kind of want to piggyback off what Holly Rod said, which answers your question, Lashonda, about the patience part. I had a conversation with my best man, and he said something to me, and I argued it. I mean, when I tell you I argued him down, I argued him down. He said that if there is a relationship that was tainted and it's over, it's because the man did not know how to communicate to his lady. Most relationships, most cases, it's the man that's pursuing the actual relationship. Women give access to sex, men give access to relationships. So if he is not patient enough and he's not communicative enough, it could be just that he didn't say it in the right mood she was in, or he didn't use the right terminology or anything like that. But it takes time to figure out how to communicate that insecurity, where the woman can take into accountability, because we all know that is y'all number one Achilles heel, is accountability. So if that is the case, and you're not patient enough to communicate that, it is definitely on the man. I follow what you're saying, to give account, to put the accountability on the woman in that type of situation. But at the same time, you got to give her a safe space to be able to give that accountability.
That part about the
Yeah,
safe space, that part,
yeah, definitely.
that part,
Yeah, definitely.
that was super true. And
That goes both ways too, though. I think, man. Like, I'm
I
sorry. Go
agree.
ahead.
I agree. But we talked about that on the podcast, right? Like we talked about everybody has different sources of what they'll define as a virtuous woman. For me, I tend to go to the Bible. That's the sacred document that I use to get my principles from. And the bottom line of a virtuous woman in that Bible, the way that I read it on the podcast, my humble interpretation of it is a woman earns the trust of the heart of her man. A man knows that he has found a good wife when he can put his soul and his heart with her and it's entrusted. So that speaks to women creating a safe space to create life for her husband, not just life in terms of having babies, but speaking life into him. He, especially for black men, he has a vision that the world has never wanted him to see. You are supposed to pour into that. You are supposed to go through the trenches with him to get him over to the other side. You are supposed to wake up next to him every day and tell him how awesome he is, how strong he is. You're supposed to see the battles that no one else can see and allow him the time to be, vulnerable. And I'm tired, I'm carrying the world. Okay, we'll unload that and we'll carry it together. And that really, that concept of being the holder of life from a loving and intimate and spiritual perspective, that's really the cornerstone of a virtuous woman. And so there have been so many women that's allowed stigmas from society to get us, caught up in the, oh, she's the BBL, and oh, I gotta go get this work done, and oh, I gotta just dress like this, and oh, I gotta be able to turn this and that trick part in my language. But it has really caused us to have our virtues inside out and to create little pockets of insecurities, especially when a man has never known what that's felt like. If he's never known what that's felt like, he could be at home in what the woman might think is a perfect relationship, but she's still not tapping into her fullest potential to give him that safety, and he's still out looking for other things. Now, I'm not saying that cheating is a woman's fault. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is that women, we are truly doing ourselves a disservice to not step into our fullest potential or of who we have been called to be. Naturally speaking, we are keepers of life for a reason. And so I definitely agree with that in terms of women. You have to create a safe space for your husband in terms of speaking life into him and allowing him to live and be the best man that he needs to be.
And that why, and I 100, 1,000,000% agree with that. Just to add balance, yes, it's absolutely the woman's job to say those things, but it is not your job, women, to make him believe it. If he don't believe it, then that's where you need to have a little discernment. You know what I'm saying, and be like, all right, I'm saying it. He don't believe it. He don't want to believe it. So, you know,
Yeah.
this now you're in the situation where my value is not being valued by someone who isn't capable of valuing it, and that's when it's time to move on, in my humble opinion.
Awesome. I 100% agree with that. And that's great
So,
balance.
so
Oh, go
you're
ahead.
saying there's an actual, I guess you could say there's an actual threshing hold. There's an actual limit. I mean, is there a limit on love? Is there a limit on patience?
Absolutely. But
I
that's
think, I
all
think
personal.
yeah, everybody have their own threshold. Yeah, everybody's threshold is different. So, like, to speak off what G Don and Lashonda was saying, at what point everybody has their own reservoir. Everybody has to learn how to pace themselves accordingly. And I think that that's what that becomes a part of our healing journey. Like, right. We've all cut off people. We've all disconnected from certain circles or certain behaviors on our healing journey because we had reached our threshold. I think everybody has a threshold, so that's why I said it has to be in balance and moderation. But like me personally, I if I consider you somebody close to me, then I'm going to have more patience with you than somebody that I don't consider as close to me. So I think when we're talking about relationships and marriage and that sort of thing, um, I truly believe that you have to accept the good and the bad in hopes that the bad becomes better with time. I think that that's really the only way that we can accept each other as humans. You have to accept the good and the bad. What you're willing to deal with, you have to be upfront with yourself about what you're willing to deal with, what you are willing to compromise. But there has to be some level of patience for somebody that you consider a close loved one.
Yeah, I think put another way, it's called the concept of grace. You know what I mean? It's one thing to have patience, it's another thing, to have grace. And sometimes both of those things need to be presented. One thing that I want to comment on, we kind of got away from it a little bit, but I kind of just want to speak a little bit on my personal experience. We were talking about women who get mad when their partners, like or heart certain posts, or if they're going out and looking for certain things. That doesn't always necessarily have to be an insecurity per se, right? There are some women who, let's just be real, some women who got their men from that. Right? Let me go ahead and make this post. I'm gonna see who like it. I'm gonna see who DM me, and then I'm gonna take my pick. And so part of that could just be I'm knowing who I'm with. I'm knowing the shortcomings of the person that I'm with. And I think that that's why, to Shonda's point, it's very important for us to unpack emotions that we're having, to unpack, certain triggers or certain actions or behaviors that cause us to be overly or overwhelmed with certain emotions, because some of that could be an insecurity, in which case you probably need to work that out and get rid of that. Some of that could be, well, I know who I'm with and I know what that behavior means when they're doing that. Okay, well, maybe you might need to ask yourself if you should continue choosing to partner with that person in an intimate way. Some of it could just simply be, you know, I personally don't like that and I don't want that behavior because I think it's thirsty and blah, 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 blah. Well, then maybe you go back to a similar question. Should you be partnering with that person if those values and those behaviors don't align? So I definitely think that
Absolutely.
there are different reasons behind why you might be feeling a certain type of way, and you have to unpack that. And the last thing, or I guess last reason that I want to pose, is some of it is just intuition. Now, I do think that some women call everything intuition. Not everything is an intuition. Some things are insecurities, and other things are intuitions. But I do believe that a woman's intuition is real. I do believe, and I have seen it save people's lives, especially a mother's intuition. Like, that's a very
It has
real
saved
thing
mine
to
on
me.
multiple occasions. Multiple
Yeah,
occasions. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
But that's what we talk about, how discernment is important. Discernment is an important part of deciphering whether the messages that you're getting are your intuition, or are they manifestations of trauma. You have to be able to decipher the difference between those things. And when you got a lot of stuff, like for a lot of women in this society are dealing with anxieties, overthinking, the shit that I was dealing with. And it's hard to know what your intuition is or follow your intuition when you're dealing with anxiety and overthinking and depression. These things, I won't say they disconnect you from your intuition, but it makes it a lot harder to tap into it. That's another reason why healing is so important for men and women, because men have intuition too. Theirs may be different, but they have it.
Yes, yes. Especially when it comes to security. I'll speak from my personal experience. My husband's intuition when it comes to security is off of the charts, and I love it. I'm
For,
just saying it does it for me.
for sure, their intuition is more of a physical instinct. Rather, ours may come in different ways, visions, messages, nudges that we get. Theirs is more just a physical instinct that doesn't require any additional thought. Like he said, men are typically the hunters. So in order to be a hunter from a primal standpoint, you have to have a physical instinct.
Yes, yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. So, summing up a lot of what was said, but most recently, healing is important. Mental awareness is important. Having mental accountability partners is important, because there are times where you can be in a mental state of anxiety, depression, a plethora of things, and that can be clouding your judgment. It can be potentially putting other relationships at risk, but most importantly, your relationship with yourself, because now you're not able to be as self aware. you're not able to exist in the entirety of the person that you are made and called to be. Especially speaking to the sisters, but really that's to everyone. That is really to everyone. Well, y'all, I'm looking at the time and I'm way past the time lot that I was given for this unpacking, but y'all just kept me here. Y'all kept me on the couch. But we do want to go ahead and wrap it up tonight, especially because our biggest audience and followers are Chiefs fans and they are currently on the field. So we're going to go ahead and wind it on up for tonight. We appreciate all of you. I learned a lot. I always do. I had a great time. I hope you all did too. Take the rest of the night to root on the Chiefs, to self reflect, and to just appreciate yourself for who you are called to be. I hope we all heal. Remember to follow us on YouTube. Check out the next episode coming from the brothers. Peace and blessings to everybody.
Right on. Y'all have
Appreciate
a good
y'all.
night.
Right on, right on.
Peace and love, man. Y'all see safe.
Oh, by the way, that chili mac was fire.
My God. All right, right on, man. I'll holler
Yes,
at y'all.
bye.